Ancient voices, living voices, the sage message. From the beginning of time, they have always known, from the spirits of the elders, the truth comes home together. Ancient knowing living voice, the sage message.
Hello, children of the light. Welcome to yet another episode of Sage Sundays with Ikukulabenguni. Channeling this week's message nearly took me out. It nearly took me out. And it has a lot to do with the nature of the message. And so anyway, let's get into it. This is apparently the 9th episode. Shout out to 8 weeks of absolute consistency. I am so proud of myself on some level because it takes a lot out of anyone to show up consistently week in, week out, the way that I've had to pull off the last few episodes. But I am happy to say that this is episode number 9 and we are still here and we're still doing what we need to do. So kudos to everybody who has contributed in one way or the other. And this being the 9th episode, 9 is like, in numerology, 9 is a finishing number of sorts. And it has a lot to do with the completeness of something, the completion of a process, the completion of a cycle, right? And the thing about 9 as well is that it can be linked to the evolution and maturity of a person, a process, or a practice. And it's often followed up by 10, which is recognized as a new beginning on a higher plane. And I said I was triggered primarily because when I was reflecting on the episodes that have been put up, as it were, and looking at what could complete the message, it was made clear to me that the one thing that was missing was the personal journey aspect. And naturally, I'm doing this on my own. And so it really felt like this was about me as a person. And if you recall, in the welcome episode, I'm so clear on the fact that I'd like for there to be distance between my day-to-day existence and the podcast. And I said the process of channeling the message was triggering because for the first time, my guides challenged me to lean on my personal experiences in order to deliver the message. And this is really difficult for several reasons. And I hope as we go through the episode, you're going to understand why I struggled a little bit. Because there's nothing as worthwhile as extracting the necessary lessons from difficult life experiences. I'm the first person that will tell anybody that when you go through a tough phase in life, then you can spend time looking at the negative experience or whatever it is, as long as the reason why you hyper focus on it is to extract the necessary lessons so you can move forward. But having said that, I'm also the first person that will tell you how painful it is to need to go back in time and look at a painful period and look at a time when you were not at your best, and be expected to reflect on this and draw the necessary life lessons from it. So I hope as I'm like talking about this, that I'm giving you a sense of the difficulty that I have had to go through today, because the episode title is Discovering Idlozi. I would say that it is a very intimate episode, right? Because in the last 8 episodes, what we've done is really focus on the relevance of idlozi, the relevance of our spiritualism, the value of being in communion with spirit, as well as the common pitfalls and difficulty that come with an early spiritual awakening, if I could put it that way. This is not to say that there is no fortune or opportunity that comes with embracing your spirituality and choosing to be in communion with your spirit. And I think this is a message that may have fallen through the cracks over the past weeks, because in a way it would sound as though there's so much difficulty and so much struggle, yet not so much to be gained. Primarily because I haven't focused on the gains. And I don't want to say it hasn't been deliberate, because it has. If I had come on here and the first thing I had done was tell everybody about the joy, the glory, the benefits, all the possibilities that are unlocked by your spirituality, then it would sound as though I was a traveling salesman with the briefcase and I was telling you about this neat thing that could do all these amazing things and improve your life in so many different ways. And it would be naive of me to do that. And it wouldn't be genuine at all, right? It would be unfair, because situational awareness contributes to the joy and the relief that comes after all of this. Having said that, I've already mentioned that today's episode is going to focus on me and my journey of self-discovery of idlozi. And I'd also think of today's episode as a love letter to the gifted, because if there's one thing that being gifted is going to do to the average person, it's to hurt. Now, I've mentioned in the past that I am multi-gifted. One of the gifts that I possess is that of clairaudience. Clairaudience means I hear things, right? So when someone is going to come to me for a reading, I will be made aware of their approach. So a few days before, I'm going to get like clear messaging of the person. It may be someone I know, it may be someone I don't know, but I'll know they're on their way to me. And I like to believe that it's often when the person makes up their mind to reach out to me for help. I don't know. I don't know how it works. But anyway, I'll get this notification that there's a person who is on their way and this is what they look like. And this will usually be like in a dream or something. And then when the reading is set up and it's time for them to show up, then I will often be given the details around what the person is coming to ask about. So in my case, I kind of have answers to the questions that the person that's coming for the reading will pose in advance. This is also why I said that it's so important for you to set an intention for a reading ahead of time. Because only then can your ancestors go and deliver the answers that you need from the person that you've agreed to receive your reading from. Then it's a smooth transaction, right? I hope that makes sense. So anyway, I have the gift of clairaudience. And it's a distinct voice that speaks in my ears, right? I know what the voice sounds like now, and I've also learned to separate the voice of the gift from my conscience, It took a minute for me to tell them apart, as it were. Having said that, when I realized that there was the voice of the gift, I had to try and figure out when the first time I heard this voice was. And I'd like to believe my first encounter with idlozi was the year I turned 10. It was a random Sunday in July, and my dad was leaving to go to work. And the voice came into my head and said, "Hambo valelisa ubaba wakho." I was 9 going on 10. I was watching TV, and it was probably something that I really enjoyed because I remember having the thought and my response to the thought being, he'll be back. He'll be back next week and I'll see him then. And dear reader, the joke was on me because as it turned out, that was the last Sunday we got to see my father alive. He worked out of town and he'd be home on weekends. And by the next weekend, we got a call to say he'd been involved in a car crash and he hadn't made it. And obviously, for an almost 10-year-old, in that moment, your life changes. And the last thing you're going to think about is, why did that insistent voice come into my head that afternoon when I was watching TV and tell me to go say goodbye to him? And that memory is one of my key childhood memories. Primarily because I'd often go back to that time and be like, I wish I'd gotten up and gone to see him one last time. And I kind of held on to it through the years to be like, why didn't I just go and see him one more time? Because for an almost 10-year-old, you tend to believe that the voices that you hear come from within yourself, are part of your conscious, your imagination, anything but idlozi. And so in that moment, I wouldn't have recognized it as being idlozi that said, "Hambo valelisa ubaba wakho." I figured, me and my dad are close. He's leaving and I ought to be outside waving at him, but I wasn't. Yet ordinarily, I would have. I'd been outside waving at him when he left on many other occasions. It was just that on that last occasion, I wasn't there to wave him off. And in a child's mind, then you latch onto that and you're like, I wish I'd taken the opportunity to look at him one last time whilst I could. And I'll say that in my journey of discovering idlozi, I now, with my grown-up understanding and off the back of much healing, by the way, I recognize that as a protectiveness and opportunity in idlozi. because this was a critical moment, and idlozi did not want me to miss out on that opportunity. And so when it was clear that I was making a different decision, idlozi tried to intervene and say to me, "Hambo valelisa ubaba wakho." And I chose to do something else. Even though the thought crossed my mind, I chose to do something else. And this is the quintessential example of how, when you're not plugged in to something, you will miss the most critical, life-changing moment or opportunity purely because you downplay everything and reduce it to, oh no, that's just my conscience. That's just me overthinking. Oh, that dream meant nothing. It's because I've been thinking about this. But the reality is, do we know the difference between our intuition and our, what do we call it? Our conscience. And the thing about losing a parent for a child is, this is a major traumatic experience. And it changes things. It changes everything. And nothing is ever the same ever again. It literally forms a hard line of demarcation in someone's life. There's the before and after. And for my family, after meant that we had to find a way for life to go on without him. And my father was really young when he passed as well. He was only 43. And the older I get, the more I appreciate how much he had accomplished in his young life and how young he actually was, because 43 feels like nothing. I'm only 4 years away from 43 myself now. And life went on after his passing. But for me, I never forgot that moment where I had been prompted by something inside me to go ngiyovalelisa ubaba, right? And my life after age 10 onwards takes on two distinct streams. In the first stream, I dive headfirst into my books. I go back to school. I do really well. And everybody believes I've bounced back. And so life goes on, as it were. But the reality was, I was far too young for me to grasp the true extent of the trauma I had suffered. And I did not have the language to articulate my emotions. And instead of trying to find a way to bring the pain out, I basically put the pain into a little box and locked the box and left it there untouched. And I left it there untouched for 20 years. And the thing about grief is, locking it up and putting it in a box, not the best way to deal with it, right? And so it was basically a wound that festered, and it had all the time in the world. And nothing about me ignoring the box for 20 years changed the reality of the unacknowledged pain, hurt, loss, all of that. But I will say this. I am fortunate because I am gifted. And the point of the gift is for me to never really feel alone. And at 28, following the failure of a toxic relationship, I asked myself, but why can't I be with someone normal for a change? Why can't I be happy and settle and move on with life as it were? And guess who in that moment showed up to answer the question? It had only taken 18 more years to return, but the voice was back at age 28, and the voice had a word for me. The voice dragged me for filth. Not only was I in no position to be in a healthy relationship, I was in no position to be in a healthy relationship, partially because I was emotionally crippled by my unresolved grief. So at age 28, I had to come to terms with the fact that I had not faced losing my father at age 9. And you know, the thing about evading taxes is it might take forever for the relevant tax authority to catch you, but you're guaranteed the taxman is going to come calling. And he will collect. And so for me, when that time came and I needed to face myself, then I knew the party was over. The party was over. And I like to call that season at age 28, when the voice popped back into my head, my season of accountability in idlozi. Because at that point, I do not believe that there was any living person that could have said anything to me and I listened or heard them. Ngangingabezwa, kodwa ngangingeke ngibalalele. So there was only one voice that could have caught my attention like that. And at 28, I recognized the voice, the tone, and what it was saying to me. And this was my second encounter with idlozi in my youth. And it was to kickstart my phase of accountability. Because many an opportunity had been offered to me in the prior phase. I'd received great jobs. I'd received great opportunities. And in return, in response to all of those great opportunities, due to my unresolved emotional trauma, I had instead fallen in with bad friends. And instead of using all that money to do fruitful things, I had instead blown it all on parties and alcohol and expensive holidays. And I'd lived a great life for anyone watching from the outside. But I'd done all of those things to try and fill the void in me, because there was a gaping hole where my purpose was meant to lie. And it was primarily because I didn't want to pay attention to anything that required any level of introspection, because it would mean I'd need to face the darkness in me. And the darkness at that point was the pain of losing my father. And I cannot stress enough how I still felt that way 20 years after the fact. And that's crazy. I was in it, and that was crazy. But I will tell you that one of my greatest lessons from fumbling the opportunity bag, if I could put it that way, is your gifts will take you to a place where your character cannot keep you if you have not done the work. I'll save you the effort of skipping back, and I'll say it one more time. Your gifts will take you to a place where your character cannot keep you if you have not done the work. And if you have not done the work, at some point, idlozi will demand accountability from you. And in that moment, you will be dragged for filth. You'll be dragged for filth. You will be expected to put in the work that you have been avoiding, and you will be asked to do nothing more than remember who you are. Okay, and so now picture this. I lost my father at age 9, going on 10. And let's say for that next 10 years following the loss, that I had somehow managed to keep it together. And in keeping things together in those 10 years, I had still been walking around with my grief neatly packed into my pressure cooker. And I think about it as a pressure cooker because, pressure cookers are like little bombs that you build and keep in your home, and you need to release the pressure. You all have the picture, right? And if for some reason you don't release the pressure before you open it, boom. And so I was walking around with the pressure cooker in my head going into my 20s. And I'd like to believe that by any stretch of imagination, the 20s are a difficult time for anybody. Primarily because the world views you as an adult, but we all know your brain has not fully developed yet. And so my 20s are characterized by me squandering really great opportunities. And I don't care to delve into the details. But what I will say is, when Idlozi asked me for accountability, it was not because I had been hung out to dry for 20 years. It was because somewhere along the 20 years of ignoring my grief, I had switched off my intuition because I did not want to feel anything. I had taken Make Me Numb Nelson in Sarafina, literally. Only in this case, I was Nelson. I was the bad vibes. But anyway, so when at age 28, I'm finally like, guys, I'm so sick of this cycle. Why does this cycle keep repeating? Idlozi simply picks up the mirror and it's like, because this is who you are. This is who you are. And the only person that can change it is you. But just because this is who you are right now, it does not mean that is what you are destined to be. You were enough before the world told you anything about yourself. And in that moment, it was clear to me that I was the one that had worked myself into the mess. And so I was the one that needed to reverse engineer myself out of the mess. And I'm not going to lie to anyone or sugarcoat anything, but I will say to you that between ages 28 and 31, there was a lot of introspection and hard work that went into like just resetting myself. And that point of accountability basically triggered a cleanup process. And because of that question, for me, the answer to my question, the answer to why can't I be with someone normal for a change, the answer to that question being because it is who you are, never left me. And fortunately for me, it was a rare lucid moment on my part. And so for the first time, I didn't shy away from the facts. For the first time, I took the message on board and I looked into what that actually meant about me and where I was going. That I was 28 then, but what did I want my life to really look like? And I recognized that I needed to make a decision at that point about my life. And going back and returning to myself would mean rejecting who I was in that reality. And I will not try and claim it was an easy conversation to have with self. But I will say it was the perfect conversation to have with self, because it was certainly time to get into the business of restoration with idlozi. And skip forward to the year I turned 31. And I have at that point just completed my master's. So shout out to me at that point. I'm like, what a hectic 3 to 4 years. I have cleaned up my act. And I'm firmly in the, okay, I would like to now find a nice job. I'd like to get my life back on track. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling strong. And I now need to just get back to work. And I'm actively looking for work, and it's not happening. And guess who pops back at that point? The voice is back. And the voice says to me, look at country X. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I was on my laptop at that point anyway. So I just go on Google and I look up the country that had been put into my head. And there it is. A very similar opportunity to what I'd been thinking about. And there's like an ad for a role in that specific country. And the description looks exactly like what I would like. And the deadline for the position was the following day. And so I work on the application really quickly and I submit in time for the deadline. I was hired in 3 months for that specific role, and I relocated, and the rest is history. I have a PhD now. I live a completely different life. The normalcy that I was craving at age 28 has been delivered to me in totality by age 39. And the delivery of the normalcy, as I termed it at 28, where I was like, why can't I just have a normal life, has meant that there's so much heavy lifting that I needed to do in the meantime. And a lot of that wouldn't have happened outside of me being in communion with my spirit and understanding the true role of my spirituality. Because I say to you that at age 30, following the completion of my master's and mid-job hunting activities, that the voice then returned and told me the exact country to look for, and that I was led to finding a job post that would expire in less than 24 hours, basically, because I found that job ad on the 30th of March, and the closing date for the post was the 31st of March. And so if I had not recognized the voice, I may have missed my boat. And when the voice returned at 30, telling me about where to look for a specific opportunity, then the voice never really left. At that point, it was an ongoing conversation. At that point, then it was a constant back and forth because for whatever reason, I was finally vibrating at the right frequency. Had I gone through a lot? Yes. Because I had lost so much and I had seen so much and I had been through so much at that point. Did it mean I was done with all the work I needed to do? No. It just meant I had done enough to get me to the point where idlozi felt it could pivot to the next level, right? The level of restoration in idlozi, the level of communion in spirit. And I cannot tell you how rewarding this new level is. And now I feel like this episode is taking forever. And I need a break as well because I feel a bit emotionally raw. I have given you the PG version of most of my experiences, but as you will all know from your personal experiences, the memories are far more vivid. So if you will allow me, we will pause our talk here for this episode and we'll come back to it next week, okay? And as always, you are loved, you are cared for.
Ancient voices, living voices, the sage message.